At almost any time after Hannibal's death, Rome might have marched her legions practically unopposed over all the lands within her reach. Yet she permitted a century and a half to elapse ere Pompey asserted her sovereignty over Asia. It was left for Augustus to take the final step, and by absorbing Egypt make his country become in name what it had long been in fact, the ruler of the civilized world. Thus too we may think of Augustus as a kindly despot, supreme and governed only by his own will, but his compatriots looked on him as simply the chief citizen of their republic. They considered that of their own free will to escape the dangers of further civil war. They had chosen to confer upon one man, eminently safe and sane, all the high offices whose holders had previously battled against one another. So Augustus was emperor or imperator, which meant no more than general of the armies of the Republic. He was consul, or chief civil administrator of the Republic. He was Pontifex Maximus, high priest of the Republic. He could have had more titles and offices still if he would have accepted them from an obsequious Senate. But the title of king, so obnoxious to Roman taste, Augustus never sought, nor did his successors, who were in turn appointed to all his offices. For nearly 3 centuries after the one-man power had become absolute, Rome continued to call itself a republic, to go through forms of election and ceremonial, which grew ever more and more meaningless and trivial. Augustus seems to have felt the tremendous weight of his position and to have tried honestly to divide his authority. He invested the trembling Senate with both power and responsibility. In theory, it became as influential as he, but the appointment of its members, and also the supreme control of the armies, remained always with the imperator, and thus the Senate continued in reality little better than a flickering shadow. Under the reign of a well-meaning emperor, it loomed large and often dilated into a very valuable and honorable body. In the grip of a tyrant, it sank at once to its true aspect of helpless and obsequious submission. To the outside world, the reign of the Roman emperors was welcome. The provinces were governed by salaried officials whose conduct was seriously investigated. The hideous extortions and cruelties of the governors sent out in the earlier days of the Republic almost disappeared. This mild rule seemed happy in the contrast. An emperor might be a brute at home, but his personal cruelties could scarce spread over an entire world. Money for even the hugest extravagances of only one man the provinces could supply. At first, they scarce felt the drain. Then the Jews, roused to sudden religious frenzy and believing themselves invincible, burst into rebellion. Titus stormed their capital and burned their temple. But the lesson was wasted on the stubborn, fanatical race, and 60 years later they flared out again. Roman relentlessness was roused to its fullest rage and accomplished against them the destruction of prophecy. Their cities were razed to the ground, and the poor remnant of the race was scattered abroad. One other tumult, more central and in that sense more serious, intruded on the Roman system. Just a century after the rise of Augustus, the tyrannies of his successor Nero became so unbearable that even his own Senate turned against him, and he was slain without having appointed a successor. The purely military character of the empire was at once revealed. Different armies each upheld their own general as emperor. The claimants attacked one another in turn, and the strongest won. The turmoil lasted for only a year or so, just long enough for the distant legions to gather around Rome. The bloodshed was nothing as compared to former ages. The helpless Senate acquiesced in each new proclamation of each successful army, and the rest of the world, scarce even jarred in its daily course, flowed on as before. On the whole, then, these 200 years were one long period of peace. It was Augustus who, for the first time in centuries, closed the gates of the war god's temple in Rome. He encouraged literature, and we have the Augustan age. He boasted that he found Rome built of bricks and left it of marble. He and his successors did far more than that. They constructed roads extending from end to end of their domains. Communication became easy. A mail post was established. People began to travel for pleasure. The nations of the world intermingled freely and discovered for the first time on earth that they were much alike. The universal brotherhood of man may be not even yet fully recognized and welcomed, but the first step toward its acknowledgement was taken under imperial Rome.